who have been listening to us since day one. And in addition to what Eric has mentioned, we've done great design conversations last week regarding empathy and technology. Available siya on YouTube for those who miss it. So you have
Yes,
time
that's
to
right.
catch up. If not catch up, Eric, maybe review and pick up something, some golden grains of information that they can sprinkle over their design. So, yan, this afternoon, I'm super excited. Excited of two things, Eric. Bakit? Number one,
Mm.
we will have a very interesting pairing of speakers today.
Yeah.
No? And because we're talking about twos, no? A pair. So, ang ganda ng magiging conversation I'm creating already that this will be a learning full of experience right now. And having said that, yung number two, let's expect that we will be extending a little bit more than compared to the first and the second series
Just a
because
little bit.
we will just a little bit because since we're having two people share perspective, it will be a very interesting mix on how these two conversations would happen. Eric?
Yes, exciting. And so we're really excited. And of course, yeah, hopefully this will inform your design submissions for this year's Asia Young Designer Awards. Remember, submission is on December 3 and you still have time to think about your submissions for this year, especially with the theme Forward, Amplifying Empathy Through Design. And of course, again, we
Correct.
would like to thank the mentors who also join us for guiding our students. Talaga naman, because these are our partners, Michael. They say AYDA is not just a competition, but a
It
community, a
is a
loving and
community.
supporting community. And so, of course, we would like to thank Nippon Paint for making this possible for our Philippine design community because this is the first time that we're doing design talks in the Philippines, Michael, di ba? So you did the regional, you had experience with that. Pero for the first time talaga, out of generosity, sobrang love talaga ng Nippon Paint at support sa Philippine architecture interior design community. And so, of course, we would like to hear from them too through the marketing head and the head of Asia Young Design Awards Philippines, Miss
Miss
Lyra
Lisa.
Castillo.
Yeah,
Miss
Miss Lisa.
Lyra,
Hi, good afternoon everyone. So, yeah, thank you po sa lahat on behalf of Nippon Paint, thank you for joining us sa third day ng Design Talk natin. Also, we'd like to extend yung appreciation natin sa mga speakers natin this afternoon, si Prof. June and si Miss Charisse, and also sa mga judges ng AYDA who's with us here today, si IDR ID and Cynthia Mario and si Architect Richard Garcia. So we hope that today's session will provide you with fresh ideas for winning AYDA entry. So good luck everyone. Thank you IDR Michael and Eric.
thank you so much, Miss Lyra. Talaga naman, convinced na ako, Michael. Pag AYDA ka, kailangan good-looking, celebrity-looking, di ba? Ganyan.
Yeah, tawag kan Eric, always camera ready.
Camera
Diba?
ready. Oo,
Camera
yes, Miss
ready.
Lyra.
So,
Thank
kanina,
you so much, Miss Lyra.
kanina tinatanong mo ako, who am I wearing? Siguro ang
Yes.
sagot na lang sa'yo, what am I wearing?
Oh, what are you wearing? Magandang tanong
Yes,
yan.
thank you. Sabi ko nung mag-start tayo, magko-costume ako. Pero come to think of it, dapat hindi pala costume ang sabi ko dito. What I'm wearing is actually a recycled barong.
Oh, wow.
I wanted to wear this maybe just to introduce or tee up our conversation this afternoon, no?
Oo.
When I was thinking of something to wear in a formal event, actually that was the opening of the film I was part of. Sabi ko, and we were asked to wear barong. Sabi ko, I don't want to wear something new or have something made for the event. Sabi ko, I look at my closet, and you know what happens with old barong? They turn yellow, and you can't wear them anymore. So I have a friend. He did me a favor by upcycling my barong and cutting pieces and apply it into an evening jacket. So this afternoon, that will be our take. That will be the tone. What do we have in our closet? Not only literally in our closet, but in the closet of history and events and in the environment of our national history that we may pick up and do, and make purposefully part of how we live our lives today. And most specifically, in our design. Eric. Yeah.
Oo.
So,
Ay, tanungin mo naman ako kung sino naman din yung suot ko para ma-promote ko din.
who are you wearing today?
Ayan. So I'm wearing this hand-woven textile from the Weavers of Fuliongan Village through Kandama Collective ni Victor Bagilat. So ito po has gone through the fashion runways of Melbourne, New York, and Paris. So this is from the Paris collection, ganyan.
Wow.
Ang recent niya si Pia Words Back for Vogue Italia. Yung suot ni Pia Words Back for Vogue Italia is by Kandama Collective. But really in support of culture, right? And this is the whole point. It's not just about the makers or the textiles themselves, but it brings us back to the people and the community. Right? And so culture is a way of life. It's a really, really wonderful topic. So for sure we'll have a wonderful conversation. And it's not just going to be just us, Michael, diba? We are joined by our head judges lang naman for today, diba, of AYDA this year. And so requirement po talaga ang kailangan good looking aside from really being good at your craft, diba? And so talagang in practice nila at wala kang questions about it. And so I am very proud and excited really to introduce our head judges who will be joining us in this afternoon's conversation. Let's start off with this really, really handsome, grabe pag umarap sa camera, ito talagang celebrity looking, very dashing. Right? He's the National Executive Vice President of the United Architects of the Philippines, and he's a senior partner and vice president at Visionary Architecture Incorporated. And so, of course, none other than our head judge for architecture this year, Architect Richard Garcia. Architect Richard,
good afternoon. Magandang hapon sa inyo, Eric and Michael. Sobra ako na-flattered naman sa introduction mo.
Akala ko nga unang tingin ko, akala ko, si Richard Yap ba yung ating
actually, tinatawag ko minsan Sir Chief. Actually,
Sir Chief.
Talagang kinago ko talaga si Richard Yap. But malayo actually.
Ayan, thank you so much, Architect Richard. We'll be hearing more from Architect Richard and how this particular design can be applied in architecture. And of course, ito talaga tandem, Michael. Our co-head judges for this IDR.
Ayan, thank you, Architect. Okay, sorry.
And of course, yes, ang ating co-head judges for interior design this year. Super love ko talaga tong sisters na to, di ba? Very beautiful, but not just like externally, but in whatever they touch on, their output super beautiful, but also how they mentor the students. And so, of course, the co-founders of Atelier Almario, none other than IDR Ivy and IDR Cynthia Almario. Mabuhay!
Good afternoon!
Hello, everyone! Hello!
Pretty in pink.
Yeah, pink!
Pink, yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone, thank you for having us. We're super excited with hearing the speakers talk about culture. I really like the metaphor you said, Michael, because you segued your whatever you're wearing to what we're gonna do today. So I'm looking forward to this very wonderful webinar.
Yeah, thank you, Cynthia. Ivy?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having my sister and I. So excited for this amazing conversation that's going to happen after we listen to the talk of these two gifted speakers. Abangan.
Oh. And mamaya, Eric, let's give these wonderful designers a little bit more time to plug something.
Definitely exciting.
They have something really amazing to share with us later, maybe later in the conversation. So I'm so super excited to this new journey with them. So ito yung nagagawa ng part ka ng Ayda community, AYDA community. You never stop. We never stop. We build community, we co-create the future. Eric?
Yeah, super exciting. Yan talagang abangan, di ba? And so, abangan natin yan mamaya.
Okay. So, Eric,
shall
Michael.
Proceed? Yes, definitely. So, Michael, who is our speaker for today?
As we've mentioned earlier on, we have two speakers this afternoon. First, we shall be meeting Professor Felipe M. De Leon Jr. When I was going over the bio notes, sobrang dami, and he's very well accomplished, no? But I'll just mention a little something, no? And I will not mention the dates. Oh, para you will not you will be amazed on how much knowledge he has. Number one, our speaker this afternoon obtained his AB Humanities degree cum laude in the University of the Philippines, and later pursued the graduate studies in music theory and composition from the same university. He served as the chairman of the Department of Humanities of UP Diliman, and after which he was elected president of the Pambansang Samahan ng Psikolohiyang Pilipino, and in which he has very intense interest in the Philippine culture, especially in indigenous, and soon became widely recognized about it. He became the head of NCCA's Subcommission for Cultural Communities and Traditional Arts. He later became the head of Subcommission for the Arts of the National Commission of Culture and Arts, NCCA, for several terms. Consequently, he was elected as the chairman of NCCA for 2 consecutive terms. He finished his doctorate studies in applied, ang ganda nito, Eric, cosmic anthropology at Asian Social Institute, where he is presently teaching social transformational courses. And I love the word transformational.
Yeah.
We'll learn about it later. He was a commissioner of UNESCO Philippines and the chairman of its Committee on Culture. He also became the vice president of the International Music Council of the UNESCO, and currently he is the head of the National Committee on Music of NCCA and member ng Gawad ng Manlilikha ng Bayan Executive Council, which he serves as chair. Eric, hindi ko na sinasabi yung dates, ha? So, imagine, grabe, so you
The
can
wealth of experience.
grabe tong binasa mo lang, sobrang you expect already to learn something this afternoon. And then I'll just proceed, Eric. I'll read the other speaker so we can continue together, right?
Right. Yeah, yes,
Okay.
yes.
So, the next speaker after Professor De Leon is Charisse Tugade. He is a cultural worker, primarily mover for Culture Aid founder of the Manila Collectible Company, founding director of Museo ng Muntinlupa, and executive director of the National Book Development Board. With interdisciplinary experience that spans the public and private sector, she creates an environment that empowers and amplifies voices, connecting communities and organizations that otherwise might not cross paths. As the executive director of NBDB, she is currently working on the National Book Database to standardize publishing industry metadata and bibliographic information of Filipino authored publications. She also envisioned and spearheads the Book Nook. What's a Book Nook, Eric? This is very interesting. Storytelling and reading community sites that provide Pinoy books for kids and the kids at heart, from Ifugao to Tawi-Tawi. Amazing, Eric. She has a BA in anthropology and marketing from San Francisco State University and is pursuing her graduate studies in museum studies at Harvard. Ladies and gentlemen, you can just imagine the kind of conversation we will have this afternoon. So for starters, we shall be ushering in or presenting our first speaker. Kanina tinatanong natin siya, how do we want him to be called? Ang sabi niya, mas casual, mas maganda. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ka June De Leon.
Thank you very much. Maraming salamat, Mike. Marami palang mic dyan, no? Magagaling ang mga mic si Michael yan. And I know another Mike who's Mike, Michael Manalo, no? Magaling din siya. Miko, architect, very good architect. Thank you for the introduction. Now I shared my screen and I hope you can follow this. There are parts of which may not be acceptable to, well, conventional architects, but I hope you will have the open mind to really understand the relationship between culture and architecture. Sige. Yes, please tell me if you are seeing my screen. Parang sigurado, no? Thank you.
Yes, Kajun, we're seeing your screen.
Sige, nandiyan na. Thank you for inviting me to this forum. My topic is culture, which is worldview, values, and forms of expression. Many people have a limited idea of culture. They connect culture mainly to the arts, but that is not really correct. Because culture is all-encompassing. It is a society's dominant, enduring quality of consciousness or a habitual way of feeling about life. And so everything is an expression of culture, intellectual, artistic, religious, scientific, technological concepts, and political, social, economic relations. Lahat yan ay kultura. That's why it's funny when you connect culture just to the arts. Minsan nga, problema kung sinabi niyo NCCA, National Commission for Culture and the Arts. But the arts are only one component of culture. Mathematics is as much a cultural expression as the arts. Because it is a society's shared mode of perception and map of reality, or a mindset kung paano tayo mag-isip. No? Kaya nga hindi pwedeng sabihin isang sector lamang ang culture. Minsan nakakatawa, political sector, economic sector, scientific sector, cultural sector. No, culture is the foundation of everything. It's a mindset, it's a people's shared sensibility. Let's look at two cultures, Renaissance and Baroque. One is 1400 to 1600, the other is 1600 to 1750, more or less, no? Ano ba pananaw ng Renaissance? The Renaissance saw the world as a structure, balance, order, and harmony. Kaya yung values nila may kinalaman sa mga hindi gumagalaw. That's why their physics became focused on statics, those things that did not move. No? While the Baroque saw the world as movement, tension, change, and opposition of forces. Masyado silang interesado sa lahat ng gumagalaw. Kaya lahat na may kinalaman sa galaw, na-discover nila. That's why their physics focus on dynamics. And that's why Newton, discovered the laws of motion, principles of gravitation, mass, force, acceleration. Maski yung theory of optics, tungkol sa liwanag yan, siyempre alam niyo ng liwanag. Dynamic yan, no? Tingnan natin, mathematics. Hinihiwalay natin ang mathematics sa culture, but mathematics is as much an expression of culture as the arts. Ang kabutihan lang ng arts, the arts are the most expressive. Pinakamalinaw na salamin ng kultura ang arts, kaya ikakabit sa culture. But mathematics, look, it's an expression of Renaissance mind. Kasi the Renaissance mind was fascinated with anything that does not move. Samantalang, Baroque, movement talaga. Kaya, naging interest ng Renaissance? Geometry. Kasi geometry is about balance, no? Structure, form, no? Something static. Talagang Baroque invented calculus, which is about what? The rate of change. Dalawa pa ang naka-invento o naka-discover, Newton from England and Leibniz from Germany. Nag-away pa yung dalawang bansa, each claiming to be the first one to discover calculus. Pero hindi ka taka-taka na dalawa o maaring tatlo pa o apat pa naka-discover because the mathematicians were attuned to the idea of movement. So natural na lang na calculus ang lalabas doon. Imposible lumabas ang calculus sa Renaissance at imposible magka-interest ang mga taga-Baroque sa geometry. Look at physiology. Bakit kumupulan din yung dugo pag nasugatan kayo? Well, according to the Renaissance theory, may air pressure yung katawan natin. Parang yung interior ng gulong, may air pressure. Kaya pag nabutas, lumalabas yung hangin, no? That was the Renaissance theory, which is something static, no? Samantalang sa Baroque, William Harvey Oswald, a medical doctor, proposed a theory of circulation of the blood. Tama siya. Kasi kailangan namang gumagalaw yung dugo sa loob ng katawan, kaya pag nasugatan kayo, talagang tatapan yung dugo. Except that during his lifetime, this theory was not proven. Was not proven. Yun lang ang theory niya because interesado siya sa movement, so na-attune siya sa galaw, no? Pero naman, nagkataon naman tama siya, no? The other one could have been correct, depende sa pinapaliwanag, no? Look at architecture. Renaissance architecture emphasized clear sectional structures impeding flow of movement. Yung mga hagdan are simple, inconspicuous, and hidden. Surfaces and walls are planar, smooth. Samantalang Baroque, there is emphasis on continuity and flow of movement. Stairways are grandly designed, flowing with curvilinears and diagonals prominently displayed. Pag nakakita kayo ng grand and winding staircases sa mga palasyo, lalo na sa mga pelikula, that's Baroque. Surfaces and walls are undulating, full of recessions. Tingnan niyo, no? Lots of harnesses sa kaliwa. Ako sa kanan. Tingnan niyo, no? Kay Borrominian. Galawan yung surfaces. Wow. Ito naman. Oh. Talagang ang laki ng difference, no? Yung nasa kaliwa, Renaissance, yung nasa kanan. Kay Berninian, no? Ito, look. Stairway, very simple. Samantalang Baroque. Yan. Kumurba na. Especially here, look at how the stairways are hidden. Ayaw pakita ng Renaissance hanggat maaari yung stairways. Kasi galaw yun eh. Siyempre, pag nasa hagdan kayo, hindi man kayo maaaring static doon. Gagalaw kayo, aakyat or bababa. Samantalang sa Baroque, talagang they like to display it, no? And here, another example of sa kanan, German Baroque. Wow, full of curvilinears, flowing forms, all suggesting movement. In painting and sculpture, in the Renaissance, there's an emphasis on balance of vertical and horizontal structures, geometric forms, order, and symmetry. And the composition is self-contained. Wala nang ini-imply na movement outside of the picture, no? And the plane of the figures is parallel to the pictorial plane. Kaya walang galaw. Samantala sa Baroque, there is an emphasis on curves and diagonals, very asymmetrical and irregular. Kaya ngayon sa salitang Baroque is a pearl that is irregular. Kaya maraming movement. And the paintings and sculptures are non-architectonic. Ibig sabihin, there's an implied movement that extends beyond the picture plane. The plane of the figures are an angle, no? Oblique in relation to the pictorial plane. Eh, tingnan nyo, no? Yung kaliwa, kay Raphael yan. Tingnan, balance. Left and right, no? Mantalan dito, oblique ang relasyon sa inyo. In relation to you, the figures are at an angle. Kaya yun pa lang, galaw na yun. Alam niyo, ito, diagonal, ang daming diagonal, daming curves. And bakit pinili ni Peter Paul Rubens? I think it's around 1620s, no? Nilagyan niya ng hagdan, nilagyan ng kabayo, yung sinibat pa si Kristo nilang hino. Maaring hindi talaga nangyari yan in the same way, no? Pero nilagay ni Rubens because he's interested in movement. Yan, Baroque. Tapos sa painting and sculpture in Renaissance, there is frontal even lighting. And you will see that they are studies in restraint, harmony, serenity, timelessness. And there is focus on the unchanging potential energy. Hindi naman lahat ng Renaissance ganyan, but predominant yan sa Renaissance. Predominant din itong nasa kanan sa Baroque. Side lighting. Chiaroscuro, side lighting, kagaya ng kay Vermeer. Chiaroscuro, kagaya ng kay Rembrandt, no? Nag-umpisa si Caravaggio ng chiaroscuro kasi malapit na sa Baroque yun eh. There's a study of mass, motion, force, conflict, and opposition. Opposition, parang drama, no? Siyempre, movement yun. Pag opposition, may conflict. Light. Focus on the moment of change, kinetic energy. Tingnan ito. Tingnan yung frontal lighting sa kaliwa at itong kay Vermeer sa kanan. Eh. So, side lighting, kaya nag-imply ng movement. And then, kay Botticelli, Birth of Venus, yung nasa kaliwa. Ito naman, yung nasa kanan kay Rembrandt, no? Yan ang Watchmen. Sa gabi. Kita yung drama. Look, ang laki ng difference ng Renaissance, which is interested in potential action. Hindi kayo pa sa makakakita sa Renaissance ng David na gumagalaw. Either bago dumating si Goliath or pagkatapos na mapatay si Goliath, so parehong static. Mantalang Baroque, kay Bernini nito, moment of action. Look at the works of Michelangelo, Donatello, and Verrocchio. Either bago dumating si Goliath o nang mapatay na si Goliath kaya wala ng action. Mantalang si Bernini, talagang moment of action. And if we go to music and theater, in the Renaissance, the musical harmonies were quite stable. Hindi masyadong nagbabago yung chords, no? Kung magbago man, hindi papunta sa mga tension and resolutions. Madalas panay resolution. And even the theater where tableau, mass, where the actors did not move on the stage. Nakatayo lang sila. They just spoke their parts, no? Samantalang sa Baroque, talagang grabe yung theater dyan. The theater is not the one that we are familiar with. Na talagang galawan yung mga action, yung mga actors and actresses, no? Ina-act out nila yung drama. And look, the Baroque invented opera. What is opera? Sa drama, sung all throughout. Masyado nga dynamic ang drama, tapos gagawin pa yung music, wala na. Pure movement yan. And it's the Baroque that invented opera. Hindi basta lalabas ang opera sa ibang period. Kasi siguro kayo dyan. It's about pure movement and cultures that are not interested in movement, invent opera. No? This was invented in 1600 by Peri and Caccini. No? Kaya, golden age ng European theater. Kasi nga, Baroque, ang teatro is about movement, no? Drama, action. Yung golden age, nandiyan si Lope de Vega, Calderón de la Barca, Cornell, Racine, and so on. And look at the subjects. Yung mga subjects na Renaissance, men and women in yung age ninyo, yung period na hindi masyadong magbabago yung itsura nyo. Maybe from 21 to 40.
Actually, si Richard, yung entrance, ito talaga original, yung entrance.
Very young. Kasi yung very young, talagang ang laki bago yung baby na 3 months. Yung baby yan after 1 week, ang laki yung iba na. Very madali rin mabago. That's why, look, the Renaissance was interested in prime. No?
Bakit may dito?
Sa kanan naman, baro, alam nyo na. Velasquez, talaga may mga bata rin, may matanda pa. Look, let's now go to another.
Bakit from dito sa DRR?
Bakit marami nagsasalita? Can you please? Ang daming interference, ha? I just stop muna kasi hindi magkaintindihan. Will I continue now? Balik tayo dito kasi
okay na po.
Somebody was talking sabay-sabay eh. Balikan ko lang ito kasi nagkagulo eh. Yeah, here.
Yes.
Where the actors did not move on the stage. Nakatayo lang sila. They just spoke their parts, no? Samantalang sa Baroque, talagang grabe yung theater dyan. The theater is not the one that we are familiar with. Na talagang galawan yung mga action, yung mga actors and actresses, no? Ina-act out nila yung drama. And look, the Baroque invented opera. What is opera? Sa drama, sung all throughout. Masyado nga dynamic ang drama, tapos gagawin pa yung music, wala na. Pure movement yan. And it's the Baroque that invented opera. Hindi basta lalabas ang opera sa ibang period. Kasi siguro kayo dyan. It's about pure movement and cultures that are not that interested in movement will invent opera. No? And it was invented in 1600 by Peri and Caccini. No? Kaya, golden age ng European theater. Kasi nga, Baroque, ang teatro is about movement, no? Drama, no? Action. Yung golden age, nandiyan si Lope de Vega, Calderón de la Barca, Cornell, Racine, and so on. And look at the subjects. Yung mga subjects na Renaissance were men and women in their prime. I will say prime. Yung age ninyo, yung period na hindi masyadong magbabago yung itsura nyo. Maybe from 21 to 40 or 21 to 31, hindi nagbabago yung issue rin. Samantalang ang interest ng Baroque, either the very young or the very old. Kasi yung very young, talagang ang bilis magbago. Yung baby na 3 months, yung baby na yun after 1 week, ang laki, iba na itsura. And the very old, madali rin magbago. That's why, look, the Renaissance was interested in prime. No? Your prime. Yung halos hindi nagbabago yung mukha ninyo. Sa kanan naman, Baroque, alam nyo na. Yung Las Meninas ni Velasquez, talagang may mga bata rin, may matanda pa. Look, let's now go to another expression of worldview in architecture. No? Worldview is the basis of everything, pananaw, which gives rise to values, and these values give rise to forms of expression in the arts, or science, or mathematics, or physics, or economics, or politics, no? Why hindi culture? Kaya nakakatawa mo siya, kinakahiniwala yung culture sa ibang sector. Anyway, look at the two kinds of culture. Culture of patriarchy, culture ng mga lalaki mayayabang, culture of patriarchy and domination, and culture of matriarchy and cooperation. Anong mga expressions niya sa architecture? Well, this has to do with this is based on archaeological research. In archaeology, one finds a strong correlation between a preference for square or round shapes of houses and rooms on the one hand, and cultures based on violence or cooperation on the other side. Ibig sabihin yan, pag ang culture ay based on violence, ang malamang na lumalabas na shapes architecture ay square or rectangle. Samantalang pag ang culture ay based on cooperation, malamang na ang lalabas na architectural designs are rounded shapes. In those societies oriented in a materialistic and patriarchal direction, yung mayayabang na lalaki, gaya ng maraming politiko, where greed for material goods is positively promoted and where the control of objects by male persons is a dominant aspect of social life, there is a high probability that a preference for buildings with 90-degree angles and straight walls will be manifest, will dominate. Huh? Kasi nga, ang mga lalaki hold on to the paradigm of total or worldview, no? Of total separation. Pinaghihiwalay nila yung subject sa object. Eh mahilig sila sa, gusto sila nag-ahalit, kaya isolation yan from the rest of society. They don't connect with the rest of society. Hindi sila relational. Gusto nila manalo. A typical features of such cultures are winning games in sports, politics, relationships, religions, and economics. Alam niyo naman, sa politika natin ngayon, naku, marami nilang magnanakaw, sinungaling. They will do everything just to win, no? They like to win at all costs. In catering to the greed of construction companies, short gain becomes more important than quality of human life. Maraming ganyan, maraming arkitekto na nagpapauto sa mga construction companies dahil pera yun eh. Oh. Short gain becomes more important than quality of human life or durability of the buildings. If politicians force hierarchical order and culture, round shapes are dismissed. Why? Ayaw ng mga politiko ng round shapes. Why? Because the circumference has equal distance to the center for each point. And nagsisimbolize siya ng equal rights. Equal rights for all is just what? The controlling influences do not want. Ayaw yan ng mga politiko. Ayaw yan ng mga sakim sa yaman, no? Ayaw nila ng equality. That's why they prefer square and rectangular shapes. Smooth surfaces without decor. Because yung forms na yan communicate that social value of separators and they are easier to control. Baka akala nyo ang architecture ay innocent. No, hindi innocent yan. They're party to what? This kind of, I don't know what to call it, no? Look, in China, mula na mag-dominate ang mga kalalakihan, lumabas yan sa development of the writing system which became more and more rectangular. Yung unang symbol for round was round. Tapos later, yung symbol for round naging square. The first symbol means opening mouth or talk. The second means an official. Together, they become the symbol for round and circular. Imagine, symbol for round and circular ay square. Ang square, yan ang symbol ng empire. The controlling emperor. Kaya tingnan nyo, sorry I won't mention names, pero pag design na mga Chinese dito sa Pilipinas, yung mga malls nila, rectangular or square, ibig sabihin niya, gusto nila mag-dominate, silang kontrolin ekonomiya para sa kanila lang yan. Okay. Iba ang circle. In the circle, every point on the circumference has the same distance to the center. For this reason, the circle or sphere is seen as a symbol of cooperation. Today, in case some politicians unite at a table to talk about cooperation and peace, no square table is allowed. Tingnan sa UN, pag talagang tungkol sa kapayapaan, hindi pwede ang square or rectangular table. They use a round table. Para yung kay King Arthur, Knights of the Round Table, kasi lahat ng knights doon are equal to one another. Maski si King Arthur equal sa kanila. First among equals, of course, no? People build their houses, temples, and monuments according to their belief system. And contrary to what one might first assume, the outcome depends very little to the assumed actual function. Religions with a major concentration on death construct temples that look more like grave tombs. Example yan, Christian temples, they look more like grave tombs. Kasi there's an emphasis on death. Religions that are more life-oriented build open temples with a strong connection to nature. Or they do not use a stone building at all because for them all of nature is holy instead of a limited aggregation of stones. Societies based on coercion and violence avoid round shapes. Kasi based on coercion and violence, they prefer rectangles, long halls or long tables to create distance and a head seat for one person only. Maski sa handwriting, tingnan nyo handwriting ng mga tao na mapasensya, cooperative, kagaya ng mga teachers, school teachers, rounded ang handwriting nila. Samantalang sobrang aggressive, naku, napaka-angular ng handwriting. Tingnan yan. The illusion of control over everything eliminates decorations. A good example is found in modern banks, insurances, and military buildings where all such details are found together. Kasi ayaw nilang mapakita na sila ay persons na may damdamin, no? Na may kaluluwa. Kasi madalas wala naman eh. That's why you find square buildings with square windows, the least amount of variation and the maximum amount of uniformity. This comes from manipulative cultures, not from very expressive of emotion. Kasi pag expressive of emotion, may ano yun eh, may empathy, may kakayahang dumama ng damdamin ng kapwa. The outcry for stability is prevalent. Societies based on cooperation and peace, on the other hand, have a preference for round forms like ovals, circles, spirals, and egg shape. Note, I mentioned, note the rounded handwriting of school teachers. Among the best examples for this in the Mediterranean area are the temples at Malta. Have you been to Malta? Samsicha, Nagartat, Hagrat, Cordin Ilman, and so on. No? Mahirap basa, hindi ko alam ang pronunciation. They all have exclusively oval walls with lots of variations. This led an investigating scientist to make a remark which is typical for modern Western science. The constructors of the temples avoided to build rooms with corners and rectangles. But why? Bakit daw yung mga nasa Mediterranean avoided rooms with corners and rectangles? Bakit daw ayaw nila ng mga corners and rectangles? Pero ang tamang tanong, the right question should be, why do modern cultures avoid round shapes? Baliktarin natin yung tanong. Bakit nga ayaw ng modern cultures ng round shapes? There is no place in nature where one can find similar forms like the houses in the suburbs of modern cities which are punched out as though the result of serial production. Napaka-mechanistic, very boring, very uncreative. Nakakasira ng imahinasyon. And also, structurally, rectangular corners have the highest disadvantage in construction static, the least strength, and the highest possibility of failure and collapse. Sige na, pagdating ng lindol, bagsakan niya mga yan. Bakit pinagsisiksikan ang ganong klaseng design? Therefore, there must be a psychological reason that the worst form in housing static is used in constructing the largest number of houses. Expressive yan ang values because most men saw their capacity for cooperation as a female quality. Kaya yung mga presidente ng bansa na napakayabang, ayaw lang ipakita na sila ay vulnerable sa COVID. Kaya sabi nila, duduraan ko lang yung COVID na yan. Pubusan ko lang ng gasolina na yan. Hindi ako kailangan mag-face mask kasi magaling ako. Kayang-kaya natin yung COVID na yan. Ano nangyari? Bagsak yung bansa nila dahil sa COVID. Kulelat pa nga tayo dahil sa COVID. Kasi ang yayabang, military solution ang ginagamit against the COVID, hindi naman military solution yun kasi magmumukha silang babae. Pag naging nurturing sila, pag health practitioners ang mga siwa, no? Sa halip na military. Ayun, ang yayabang, kayang-kaya natin yung COVID na yan. Kasi nga, men saw their capacity for cooperation, nurturing, healthcare as female qualities. Gusto nilang, talaga silang nagwawagi is a male attribute. So they avoided to construct round buildings. In his personal words, the Pope Boniface VIII destroyed all round temples of the Christian goddess Maria. Okay, lastly, another example for culture and its expressions, no? Are the contrasting temperaments of the Ilocano and the Visayan. Para pakita ko na sa inyo how culture operates. Kasi nga, culture is essentially a mindset. The way people think, feel, and perceive life. Their values and attitudes. Hindi arts lang yan. Although the arts, as I said, are the clearest expression of the values and the worldview of a culture. Walang mananala sa arts pagdating dyan. Kaya naikakabit ang arts sa culture. Pero culture is science, mathematics, technology, politics, religion, lahat na. Economy. Okay, let's contrast the mindsets of the Ilocanos and Visayans. Magkakaiba sila, yet they share so many things as Filipinos, no? Yes. Ang mga Ilocano, mahilig sila sa closed form. Ito yung nasa kaliwa, closed form. Walang masyadong protrusions. Walang extensions away from the center. Ang mga Bisaya naman, mahilig sa open form. Yung maraming extensions away from the center. Yan. Like this Mercury, no? Statue. Ito yung uno na walang dahon. At ang mga Ilocano, mahilig sa centripetal movement. Bisaya, mahilig sa centrifugal. Expression ng culture nila yan eh. Look, no? Among the Ilocanos, they use clear close and inward palm movement. Nakasara yung palad, tapos papaloob ang galaw. Sa Bisaya, nakabukas ang palad at papalabas ang galaw sa kanilang sayaw. They are not conscious that they're doing this. Kasi culture is usually in the unconscious level. Ginagawa natin without knowing why or without even noticing. Dominantly, with few exceptions, pag nagtalop ng mangga mga Ilocano, they peel the fruit in inward direction. Samantalang sa Bisaya, they peel the fruit in outward direction. And in the churches of the north, no, the scrolls are inward. Samantalang sa Bisaya, you will find high relief, protruding ornamental elaborations. Sabi ng mga bankers, magaling daw sa saving ay paano, mga Jose naman gumasta ang mga Bisaya. Lalo na pagdating ng fiesta. And pati yung sindi ng sigarilyo sa Ilocos nasa loob ng bibig. Ayan, look. This is in Paway. Look at how the Ilocanos dance. Nakasara yung palad. While the Visayans, bukas ang palad. And outward movement. Also, there is reference for conjunct movements. Conjunct intervals in the Ilocos. While for Visayans, hilig sila disjunct. Tapos even ng conjunct, maliliit na intervals, close spaces, stepwise movement. Pag umakit ka sa hagdan, one step at a time. Disjunct, wide spaces, malalaking intervals, skipwise, leapwise, pag umakit ka sa hagdan, lumalaktaw kayo, no? Look, litaw na litaw yan sa music. Pamulinawin, magkakadikit lang nota. Sol, la, sol, fa, mi, ni, sol, sol, fa, mi, re, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, sol, si, la, la, sol. Dikit-dikit ang nota. Maraming nota, pero dikit-dikit ang nota. Dan, soy. First interval pa lang. Okay na. Dan, soy. Da, 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 da. Alalayo ng nota. Why? Manang biday, ganun din. Ili-ili, oh. Manang biday, da, 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 mi, re, mi, fa, sol, pa, mi, fa, sol, mi, fa, sol, la, la, si, la, sol, sol, la, sol. Dikit-dikit ang nota. Ili-ili, oh. Ili-ili. Ang layo-layo ng nota, no? Ganun din, maraming mga kontraras ng Pangasinan o alibang-bang ng Bisaya, and so on. And the Ilocanos like their food to be closely packed, densely packed. Siksik na siksik. Lagi tupig, asuman, carabao milk candy, buko pie, pulburon. One time, nakabili ko ng pulburon sa Pangasinan. Dumula sa kamay ko. Tumalbog pa, pagbagsak sa lupa. Saan kayo nakakita ng pulburon na tumatalbog? Kasi nga, napaka-compact. Mantalang sa Tagalog, Bisaya, the foods are loosely packed. Yung buko pie ng Laguna, alog-alog pa yun, and so on. And the Ilocanos like their mga sentences, one whole sentence nagiging one word, no? Papanam, di ba? Oh, isang word din, samantalang sa Tagalog, saan ka pupunta, nagiging papanam lang sa kanila. So one word, nagiging compact. Ito yung buko pa ng Ilocano. Oh, compact. Oh, pwedeng deadly weapon, no? What a contrast to the book pie of Laguna of Los Baños, no? Oh, in Ilocano churches, there is an emphasis on foundation. Structural foundations are clearly articulated. Facades are plain and simple. In Visayan churches, structural parts are most often hidden by a profusion of ornate decorative elements. Ayan, no? A white church, inward scroll. There's emphasis on stability, structure, no? Yung out church in Iloilo, tingnan nyo, halos hindi nyo na makita structure dahil sa borroloy. And sa mga sayaw, most Ilocano dances are work-related, kagaya ng kinotan, sayaw ng langgam, no? While Visayan dances are playful and festive, ang nag-originate ng street dancing ay Bisaya. Kaya at yan, mabilis kumarat, naging dinagyan, sinulog, binirayan, halaran, maskara. Hindi manggagaling sa Ilocano yan, hindi rin manggagaling sa Tagalog. No? Hindi culture ng Tagalog yung street dancing. The Tagalog would rather come out with the condiment. It's very different, no? Ngayon, bakit? Ba't mahilig ang mga Ilocano sa closed form, inward movement, centripetal? Kasi lahat ito ay compact. Anything compact is more durable, more stable, and they can conserve resources. Nakakatipid sila. Gaya nung pinaka-compact na weaving ay yung abel ng Ilocano, pinaka-compact. O hindi nyo kailangan planchahin. Maski gustutin niyo, pag unat nyo, unat pa rin. So, there's no need for iron nito. Nakatipid kayo sa kuryente. Why are the Ilocanos very good in the conservation of resources? Because they have a talent for survival. Sabi ni Professor Teodoro Goncillo, one of our best historians, of all the Filipinos, the Ilocanos have the greatest chances for survival. Samantalang, pagdating sa celebration of life, walang mananalo sa Bisaya. That's why they like variety, color, and excitement. Sa mga street dancing nila, they like sumptuousness, exuberance. Kaya nandiyan yung outward movement, no, centrifugal movement, open form, disjunct, intervals, because they have the talent in the celebration of life. Pagdating sa pag-celebrate ng buhay, hindi kayo mananalo sa Bisaya. So, to conclude, the many correlations given above, correlations between worldview, values, and artistic expressions, are not just artificial concepts or arbitrary correlations made by artists. Hindi yan arbitrary. They are biologically programmed or human species determined pairing intuited by the artists. That means their validity is cross-cultural, understood anywhere, just like a smile is not culturally learned, but biologically ingrained in a human infant. Different people get the same set of meanings from them, although they may focus on different aspects of the same idea. And since the expressive forms of the arts are greatly influenced by the dominant worldview and values or key ideas of a culture, and which operate in an unconscious level, musicians, architects, and other artists are often unaware that they are using analogous forms and expressing the same concepts in their particular disciplines. Yan lamang po. Maraming salamat sa inyong pakikinig. Thank you. Sige.
Wow.
Wow.
Grabe.
Pareho tayo na sinabi, Eric. Wow. Ang dami ko napulot. Grabe, Eric.
Siksik. Parang Ilocano, siksik. But at the same time, nafe-feel mo yung energy and celebration ng mga Bisaya sa presentation ni
Correct. Ang dami.
Grabe.
I want to talk about it, but I'm holding my thoughts, Eric.
Yes, kasi we still have another speaker,
We still have another speaker.
We'll engage the conversations later with our judges. They're commenting.
Okay.
A lot of people are commenting in our chat box.
Correct.
We're excited. So we're excited to hear more from Prof. Jude, right?
Right. Si Miss Ivy Almario, IDR Ivy Almario, hindi rin niya ma-contain yung excitement niya. You know, ka-June, sobra po kaming excited sa sinabi nyo. Ang dami namin na-realize, but I'm zipping my mouth. I want to hear the other speaker, do the second part of the talk. So if we'll talk to you later, we'll have very good conversations, Kajun.
See you later.
Other speaker
See you later.
is ready.
Yes. Let's.
All right.
Charisse.
There.
Okay.
There you
Yay!
go. There you go. Just a short introduction. Kanina when we were in the waiting room before the Zoom opened, sabi ko I must have seen Charisse no in another event. True enough. But of course, more than the name, look at that beautiful face, diba? Charisse, good afternoon.
Good
We're excited
afternoon.
to hear what you have for us today.
Yay.
So anytime you're
All
ready,
right. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. So I am going to just talk about kind of cultural communities and curating communities. It's quite difficult to go after Prof. June. Right? So he's, every time he speaks, it's like, wow, it's like a new insight. Oh my gosh. It's just kind of like bubbles of inspiration and kind of learning. And it's just awesome to hear from him. And I was actually a student for a program called Mabuhay Guides, and he really does inspire me to be better and to really look at our culture and integrate kind of all of that work. And yeah, it's amazing. So I'm going to start off. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to talk about culture and curating community, kind of like values and learning experience, learning spaces, and kind of deriving knowledge from the intangible. I'm going to start about I'll just talk about myself really quickly. Okay. So my name is Charisse. I'm a cultural worker, and I actually grew up. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and after college, I wanted to kind of search for myself and kind of, okay, what's my culture? What's my heritage? When we think about culture, again, as Prof. De Leon said, it's always like art or like whatever is tangible, tinikling or adobo. So it's like, okay, I kind of need to know like where I'm from and like, what's it all about? So of course I decided to go to Mindanao. And this was about what, like 18 years ago? Parang 20 years ago na yata. Well, whatever, how many ever years ago. So I decided to go to Mindanao, and I was with this program called Cool Arts, and we were helping indigenous communities with their CAD-T. These are certificate of ancestral domain. At that point in time, and even now, there are many indigenous communities that live in areas that are high in natural resources. So you have rainforest, you have you have mining and all of that, and many people want their land. So they need to be able to have this certificate of ancestral domain to show that they have ownership of the land. So we helped this community with a lawyer and for their certificate of ancestral domain. And I don't remember which community it was. Parang it was in this place called Compostela Valley. I don't know if you know that place in Mindanao. And so in exchange for that, they invite us to their space. And, this is my first time kind of going to Mindanao and experiencing kind of any like indigenous community, right? Although I took up anthropology, I was only exposed to Baguio and like Canyao in kind of that urban area. So I went to I went there, and this was in the middle of the night. So para siyang Nat Geo yung peg kasi it was raining and then full moon, midnight, we were hiking for so many hours, and we get to this community, and all of a sudden I hear all this drumming. Like super exciting. I was like, oh my gosh, like, oh, what is this? So exciting. And I'm an arte, right? So parang, oh my gosh, like this is gonna be like all of these tribes and a costume. So I can just only hear. So when I get to the actual community, I'm like, but hindi sila naka-costume, right? They're wearing this, normal t-shirt, shorts, and instead of having drums, they had lata. Okay, lata. They didn't even have kolintang or agong or anything like that. So I was like, oh, okay, well, this is still interesting, right? Because there's this guy in the middle wearing the tangkula on his head. He had a spear, and he was going around this pig, right? Going around this pig, and parang may sinasabi siya na parang prayer or whatever. So he's going around this pig, and all these people are drumming. There's like 50 people, and they're all around. And for hours he goes on, and they're saying they're making alay nga to ask the spirits to help us with the CAD-T, right? And thinking or whatever. So he tries to spear this pig, and then something happens to him. Parang his voice changes, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, parang na-trans yata siya. So his voice changes, and it seemed as if he was speaking another language. And I was like, oh, okay, well, we're in this like awesome valley, like all nature, there's no lights, and it's a pretty cool experience. And then something happens. He gives me his spear. So I was like, okay, what do I do with this? Like, I don't know. And he essentially tells me to spear this pig. And I am very like maarte, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to do it. So I spear the pig. If anyone of you have tried to make katay, a pig or what, it's not easy kasi makapal yung skin, right? So I spear the pig, nothing happens, right? And then I do it a second time. I don't even know if I draw blood, but something happened to me. Parang a spirit, literally an energy of the entire, I feel, valley went through me, right? And at that point, I could see so far. I could hear things. And it was like, parang something opened inside. And I couldn't sleep for 2 days, right? And so finished on the ritual, whatever. And I was up and, I visited his house. So this is him in his house. And, I looked at him and I was like, wow, this guy was able to hone all of this energy. And he had that power. And yet he's not naka-costume in my mind as he's this poor looking farmer, but he had that power. And then he goes to me, we were talking, he's talking, I don't know, I don't even know what language. And then he was telling me that he had this bird called alimokon that tells him about kind of, an omen, if there's something. So he shows me this bird na parang pigeon or dove or whatever. And 2 years ago, he just tells me this, and in my mind, I'm just remembering na parang, okay, alimokon. 2 years ago, I was reading this book, Barangay. I suggest all of you, if you all can get this book, you can't see it, Barangay by William Henry Scott. And I'm reading it, and, it's a documentation of like writings from the, I guess from the 16th century. And it talks about the Visayans had this bird that is an omen bird, and it's called arimokon. So I was like, oh my gosh, this guy held on to this heritage, this culture from 500 years ago. And yet he, it's not manifested in a grand, he doesn't have a grand house, na temple or anything. And at that point in time, it's like, there is something in our culture that is more than the tangible. When we think of heritage, it's always built heritage. Okay, our churches, we always think about it as tangible. But what really lies within us that's so great is that intangible knowledge that we have. So at that point, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to move back home and just do cultural work. So that's what I'm doing now. And I kind of wanted to discuss that. Here's him in another ritual. By the way, they were able to get their CAD-T, their certificate of ancestral domain. So anyway, so that basically kind of, talking about work and all of that, and culture, this is something that I do integrate in every facet of my life, and trying to just kind of, whether it be empowering communities or just having this conversation now, because it is important, because there's so much kind of foreign media and foreign everything that's kind of like coming in. And, like even right now, our books is 2041, 24 more foreign books than local books are being like consumed. So what does that do, right? What does that do for me? What am I watching? I'm watching Netflix like all day long, and it's all kind of, it doesn't represent my own experience. So what does that do for a child that's like 5 years old, right? What does that do for them? So anyway, so what I do is I go to different communities, and, I just hang out, experience. And I wanted to talk a little bit about my work, and just so that, to whatever, if you were interested in kind of infusing any of that within your work. Right. So about cultural communities, we have about 17 million indigenous communities around the Philippines. Right. So I'll just show you some photos. This is a video, but I'll skip it because we don't have time. This is in Ifugao. I'll show you I do work kasi from north to south, right? So I work with brass casters. So if you guys are familiar with the Ling Ling O, I'm going to show you a photo later. Ling Ling O is this really cool kind of pendant, and it's worn as an earring as well. And it's a symbol of our Austronesian heritage. So it's a 2,000-year-old symbol. So if there's anything, I always talk to tourists and, they're like, oh yeah, I got this barrel man. This barrel man. And I was like, oh, that's what you got from the Philippines? Like, parang, why that, right? Why can't just Ling Ling O na lang or Inabel or something, right? Because it's kind of more, so this brass, there's only 5 families that do it left in Ifugao. So I work with them to just kind of promote their area, and I'm going to talk about it later. So this is Aizam Basilio. So he's Ifugao. And when you think about kind of cultural communities and peoples, it's not like everyone's in their specific attire, right? I mean, everyone's kind of, the malls are available everywhere. So, sorry, my daughter. Yes. Okay. Next. So this is kind of where Aizam lives. This is a ballet. So he now at this point, we're setting up this village called Gonhaden Village, where we restore, not me, Aizam does it. We restore old ballets that are being destroyed in his area. And now there's about 6 that are restored. So that is kind of in this open space, circular, right? Not rectangle, because, it's cooperation and all of that. And in the middle, you have an open space area, and you have a library. We're setting up libraries, and it's going to be a bed and breakfast and kind of the brass casting hut. And this is a space that I'm working with through Culture Aid and Manila Collectible and NBDB, empowering this community so that they can continue to do their brass work, earn money from tourism, right? Make sure that they have the really cool ballet intact, and make sure that everyone understands their food and kind of their knowledge. So it's kind of like, we try to hit all these birds with one stone. Another community, you have Gatdang, right? This is Margaret Balanci. You can add all these people on Facebook, right? If you're interested, for all of you that are interested in looking at their designs, it is better that you contact them directly, right? Because they will give you that information. Because right now, Indigenous is cool, but there are a lot of the designers that don't know how to use it. So they use it in a way where it's either disrespectful to the community, or it's just not okay. So you just call on them and ask them. Margaret, she's a weaver, she's a storyteller, and we do work with her. You also have kind of the Tinggian ethnic communities from Abra. This is Kuya Luis. I know their embroidery is super popular now. If you see their skirts, right, this is what they're doing now. This area has a lot of indigo. So if you're interested in infusing indigo in kind of whatever your fabrics or whatnot, they can do it. But the indigo's a little, maraming lime. There's a lot of lime, so it's not as bright, but they can do it. Luis is their masters at that. Okay, so that's kind of northern Cordillera communities. I don't have any Visayas and Palawan. So let's just go down south, kind of to the Manobo communities, Umayamnon, Dibabawon. So you have kind of the communities here. I think this was in Copos or Kapalong, right? So they still have the tattoos. So when people think of tattoo work, they always think of Wang Od doing tattoo work, but there's a lot of tattoo work being done in Mindanao, and many of them, I mean, it's not stylized that you see. It's kind of in their stomach or in the palms of their kind of by here. And they, when I do my interviews, they just say it's when they pass away, it's kind of their light to go to the next life. So I always see it on their stomach. I wish I had photos, but she also has here. So yan. And then you have Talandig communities. This is if you look at this one, it also looks like the Bukidnon of Panay Bukidnon. similar in terms of kind of like dress. And this community is by Datu Vic Sawa, not by, but the kind of he leads that, and Waway Saway, and they're very into music. So if you're interested in instruments, in beautiful flutes and all of that, I don't know whether you want it as decor or whatnot, then you can contact their community. So that's Talandig, Waway Saway. And then here you have some photos of Blaan community, and you see this lady right here. This is us when we were like young, and now we're older, but she's a shaman in training, and she's also on Facebook. If you have questions about Blaan culture, right? Blaan ritual, Blaan beadwork, similar to Tiboli. And then here are photos of kind of Tiboli culture. And Tiboli, this is Mirna Pula, master storyteller. So she can tell you. Okay, so there's a lot of issues with kind of the use of tinalak, and designers love tinalak because it's cool. It's abakal for hanging or whatnot, but there's specific tinalak that can't be used for anything else but just for the community. So that's the class A tinalak, super shiny. It feels like you're touching a snake, right? So tinalak, if it doesn't feel like a snake, that's not the class A. It has to feel like you're touching a snake. But I realized, because all these communities, they also have to monetize, right? Because you can make tinalak, but now I mean you're in the modern world, right? So we do tinalak in cotton, right? Tinalak in cotton, some other textiles in cotton as well. Gas. So these are, you guys know all of the designers that are doing beadwork, the Tiboli beadwork. These are the ladies that are doing the beadwork, like exactly. This is them. So, just giving kind of them that respect to kind of show who they are and what they're doing and how they live and stuff like that. So those are some of the communities. When people think again of culture, they think of it as so far off, but there is so much, everything is culture. But if you want to look at indigenous culture in Manila, like I'm from Muntinlupa, this one, it was a cool ritual in Parañaque, right? So this is a Maguindanao ritual called Ipat, and this is Abraham, and he is helping the family because they got sick and he's healing them. So we did something called Ipat, and he goes into a trance, and they use a lot of this like textile, and they have this bowl they hang on top of like the ceiling, and it does all these things, but there's a lot of textile and cloth, and it's not like a special textile, it's just like Gina that they use. And then they also, Maguindanao cultures, parang similar to Balinese, that they have the spirit houses, the little spirit houses, they would have that, but that's constructed out of cloth, right? And then you'll see the designs in the background and all of that. And this group is Muslim, but you won't, when you think of Muslim, Philippine Muslim, you always think of, many people think of them na naka-cover, or they look like ninjas or whatnot, but normal. So there, and here, this is an interesting kind of area. This is in Tugaya, and you can see the mosque, but in front of the mosque is a tennis court. So it just goes to show that, whatever perception we have of kind of certain cultures, it might not be what we had imagined. So this area is a place called Tugaya, and this is where they do all of the okir. So if you're all familiar with okir and all of that, that's where they do it, and the making of the agong. But they also really love tennis. It's a huge thing in this town. Everyone plays tennis, so you see them playing all day long. What else do we do? So this is the Iranuns. If you all are familiar with malongs, malongs are the tube skirt, and malongs for the longest time, well, it was silken and cotton, and then what happened was people started using rayon and polyester. Once the shift happened, wala na, it's over because it's hot. So everyone started buying Rosalinda malongs and all of this malongs from Indonesia and Malaysia, and you don't see the youth wearing it. You'll only see like kind of the Maguindanao malongs, Iranun malongs being worn in like festivals or whatnot. And we wanted to go back and kind of have people start wearing their own, right? Because now it's like they weave just so for whatever, right? But we wanted people to wear it. So now we're the only ones that do weaving Inaul weaving in cotton 100%. I don't have any pictures, but anyway, so you can just check her online. So this is an Iranun community. The Iranuns are the best Inaul weavers in the country. Okay. So when you think again of a weaver, the perception is weavers are only female, but that is not true. There are many male weavers, especially in this area, even Tiboli male weavers, because they're helping their wives. And actually weaving it's not just one person, it's like 5, right? You have someone knotting, you have someone doing all of this. So here's some of our male weavers, and everyone calls this guy bangag, right? Because he looks like he's like dry, I don't know. And then he's smoking a cigarette and weaving. So it's pretty cool. I mean, if you all are interested. So, this is culture in action. This is what it's like, right? You go to the different areas, people are just hanging out and another community that I wanted to look at is the Sama community in Tawi-Tawi in, oh my gosh, the name South Obian. And here they practice parang pagduwata. It's a certain ritual, and they have spirit houses still. So the spirit houses looks like a bahay kubo, pero parang may Viking siya na. Let me see kung meron akong picture. Yan, ganito, yung parang Viking na and it's not for humans, it's for spirits. So people don't live in it, they live right beside it, right? And this is where you do specific ritual. And what was interesting about this specific ritual is that the woman was the lead babaylan, and all of these males are parang her assistant, right? And they're Muslim, they practice Islam, but she'll trans into another language and she'll change, like she'll make like maghuhubad siya in front of you, no matter who's in, and then she'll change, and then and it was just really empowering for me to see like a female leader like that. And we have so much of that in our country. So kind of that's my interest, right? So how do I transform that? How many minutes do I have? Baka naman I'm talking so long. How many minutes do I have? 5 minutes?
More or less 5 minutes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, but you know what happens is like people try to like codify everything within our culture, but it's so diverse and there's so much. And what do I do kind of in my, I'm going to skip this, in my personal kind of capacity. I create kind of cultural spaces around the country and kind of in the internet universe. So I run a space. My first space is kind of this space called Manila Collectible. And I'm going to skip all of that. And it's based out of in Intramuros. So this space is, I'm going to show you a photo now. Okay, so this space is this. So this is the Manila Collectible. And what I do in all of my research and all of that, I realized that parang, I need to be able to promote the intangible prehistory and indigenous culture. And I realized that many spaces, they just sell souvenirs. And I want it to be something more than that. So what we do is we work with the communities, we collaborate, we connect, and we create new products. Plus we do tours, right? And this, I don't know if you've been to Fort Santiago, but we're the only chamber that has properly addressed the issues of like rising damp and all of these things. So we remove the cement because all of the chambers in this area, they're basically dying, right? But I know Attorney Gallier is already working on fixing some of the areas. There's so much mold. It's like really just the rice. It's all the cement has just clogged everything. We removed the cement and we worked with this Escuela Talier to kind of and then put lime wash. And I didn't know lime wash is like chalk pala. So, and I'm allergic to chalk. So for like 3 months, I was just sneezing, but while it was curing. So anyways, with this space, what we do, we look not only at this space, but we look at the entire Intramuros as a story to tell people, because most people, if you live it, it's not like you're going to say, okay, I'm going to go do a walking tour of Intramuros. So we work with like Carlos Celedran and Ivan Mendy, all of these good people, and we do tours, and at the end of the tour you can experience and then buy stuff, right? So I'll just show you some of the photos that these are some of our places that we visit even the informal settlement and all of that in Intramuros, and talk about San Agustin and Pierced Heart with kids. So that's really fun. And we also do I started integrating kind of just prehistory and talking to kids about archaeology, because that's important, right? So again, this is how I did it, right? I started Manila Collectible about 8 years ago. So you'll see elements kind of, I know, but I also wanted to share with you something. These are some of the textiles that we work with. Kind of my new kind of position is at the National Book Development Board. And I wanted to share with you a project that we had done. Oh, wait, last na. Sorry, I'm in a rush. I have so many things to say. Last na. Three things.
Go.
So I also am a director of Museo ng Muntinlupa. So when people think of a museum, it's just very parang it's a colonial thing. There's barriers to entry. People are not comfortable, right? Like libraries, it's like, oh, I have to be dressed or whatever. And when people think of the city, they don't ever think of the natural heritage that we have. So with this one, we're drawing out natural heritage because I think our kids forget that we actually have animals. They always think of oh yeah, we have a Maya. And then parang yun na yun. Parang yun na. It's a Maya and then we have a tarsier. It's like 3. Maya, eagle, tamarao, and tarsier. 4. But in Muntinlupa, we have 60 different types of birds. So in our spaces, we try to remind people na, hey, you have all of this. And you have Laguna de Bay, you have your river, and they're all connected. Don't throw your trash, right? And Bilibid is a gubat. So go visit it, right? Before it turns into something else. So yon. So this is just kind of always, culture is everywhere. Heritage is everywhere. You can really experience it. You just have to draw it out, right? And kind of recognize and be like Prof. June and look at like, hey, oo nga, that bukapay is compact, right? As compared to the bukapay of my own home. So yan. Okay, so another space, I'm going to move out. Okay, so I work at NBDB. That's the National Book Development Board. And my other job, so I do 50 different things. I'm literally dying of stress. So what we do is we promote publishing and we help readers and have access to Filipino authored books. So again, as I said earlier, there's 24-1. There's 24 more foreign books than books that we have. And that will mess you up if you keep on reading things and viewing things, experiencing everything. You go to the mall, what restaurants are available to you? What restaurants are available to your kids? What are we eating? Okay. All right, please mute. Okay, so what we decided to do is we set up a reading and storytelling space called the Book Nook in indigenous areas. So please follow Anna. So these are kind of some of the designs, but I wanted to show you these spaces. So we have spaces for reading 1,500 books, but it's going to open in November 24. We set it up in 6 months. So these are actual, when you're thinking of space and you're thinking of solutions and kind of access to like reading or whatever, you don't have to build anything new. It could be spaces that are already there and you just kind of like amp it up, or it could not even be a space. I know it could be outside. So we have from north to south. So we have some that's Bale, and we have in Lake Cebu, Bongono, Tiboli House, different, but we'll have 52 and it's all filled with Pinoy books. So that's kind of an exciting thing. We also just recently did again, trying to promote our culture. We joined this fair called the Frankfurt Book Mess, which is the largest book fair in the world. And the reason we joined it is because we not only do we want people to buy our books, but to buy the laman inside the books, because our books can be transferred. The stories can be transferred into movies. So if you're familiar with the movie Trece, right? The show Trece, that was a comic book, right? And it was transferred. So we want people, the world deserves our stories. So we're trying to do that. And in terms of like design wise, we decided to make a booth, right? And the theme was myth, magic, and the city. And here's the design, kind of, we realized what is our kind of main, what is very Pinoy. We're very maximalist, right? So we decided to go all out with our maximalist design. And we worked with Joey Alviar to get like really cool graphics of our textiles, of our icons, of our myths. And this is what it looks like. We just did it last week. So this is the one we did. This was right beside Japan. So it was cool because Japan's very parang neutral, very, and here we are. Yeah, so we want to tell our story. So we do programming, like that, virtual exhibitions, and we just dropped an NFT. If you're familiar with an NFT, these are non-fungible tokens, digital art sold online, but more pa. It's like a Bitcoin, but for art. So you have the whole culture. We did it in a booth. We did it in an NFT. We sold our books. So that's what we're trying to do. And it's a lot of work. And so if you have any questions, please email me. These are my 3 emails. Here's my cell phone number. Oh, that's my personal cell phone number. Okay. So there you have my personal cell phone number, and follow us on social media, Manila Collectible, NBDB, and Culture Aid. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much, Charisse. That was so inspiring. You know what I love about this talk is I got to see the different faces of the Filipino story. You know, it's different when you see the Filipino culture in these phases, in these communities, beyond the symbology and the iconography. You know, and this is culture. And I love that Trace gave us all these stories and faces of these people. They're actual human beings, you know, beyond what we see in our houses and in the stores. So thank you for that, Trace. And so we would like to start the conversation. Super dami. I know there's a lot of questions and reactions. And so we'd like to start, of course, with our... Yes, Michael? Yes, we'd like to start with... Yes, Michael.
I just want a few minutes to sink it in.
Yeah.
And you know what the 2 speakers pretty much, brought us to different dimensions of culture. Number 1, the first speaker brought us into the internal space of our Filipino culture and psyche. And Charisse brought us around the Philippines.
Yeah, into the shared spaces.
Oh yeah, I can already see, the emerging designs. And Charisse, thank you for posting your contact details, because I am pretty sure our students, our entries will be getting in touch with you in so many ways, because there's a wealth of inspiration. Sabi ko nga, I'm writing it here, Eric, parang when Charisse is, delivering her piece, it's almost like opening, a treasure map.
Yeah.
That one segment leads to another, then eventually, hindi lang isang treasure yung makukuha. And for me, that's what this conversation is all about.
Yes, so let's get to hear.
Yeah,
let's get to hear, because there's so many things to talk about, Michael. And so let's get to listen now to the reactions and the questions from our judges, AYDA judges. Let's start with IDR Cynthia Almario. IDR Cynthia.
There you go.
And if you have questions for our participants, you may also post your questions in the chat box.
I was so impressed with both of you. Professor June. Really learning curve. I really enjoyed, because it's something that we never really think about. And I like that kasi of course, iba-iba na yung age group, no? Especially the students. I really enjoy the historical aspect. We always call Region 1, the Ilocos, no? Region 6, all the one from Negros, no? So I just really enjoyed everything. And what really caught me was that you said that culture is essentially a mindset. We are all the same, but how we actually do things with it is the one that makes us different. So yun lang. So I was thinking, just for the design students, that you always have to design with a sense of place. Kasi now I'm noticing that very generic na yung design. You could be designing a house in Manila, but parang ang dating parang nasa New York ka. So parang we always have to bring a sense of culture to our designs, be it an accessory, be it a color scheme, be it like what Charisse was promoting, all of those mga fabrics, all of the very, very beautiful hand-woven fabrics from Mindanao. We can always use that as a headboard, or we can use it as an accent pillow. But everything lang, we just have to be conscious of bringing something cultural to what we are designing so that it doesn't become generic and there's a sense of place at the end of the day. So thank you very much.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well said. Grabe.
Very good.
Oh,
Ah,
yeah.
Tama yun.
I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
IDR Cynthia.
Who would you like to call next so that we can invite them in the conversation?
I just like to comment on what Cynthia said.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yes, Kajun po.
Pag masyadong generic at saka yung facade is too plain, people cannot relate to it because it's too impersonal.
Right.
Filipinos like to connect to persons, not to anything abstract, no? So maski man lang yung facade, lagyan ng indigenous design, indigenous patterns of texture. Maski man lang yung facade, no? To give it character. Otherwise, magiging, wala. It could be anywhere, no? Walang sense of place.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yun lang.
Agree. And we're seeing that in our submissions for AYDA, diba? But I have a question in relation to that to Charisse. Charisse, because you mentioned around the use of indigenous designs, right? So how do you suggest that we approach it? And especially considering there's questions now on cultural misappropriation and things like that, misplaced culture. So how do you suggest that we approach, especially our use of indigenous culture in design?
Oh, I think there's actually, I mean, you won't see it on Pinterest. So many people like to look at Pinterest, and it's not all there. I think, looking at books. I think Doc Peralta has a book on design patterns with the Design Center. It's good to look at that as a reference. Good to look at books like Norma Respicia's Shuttle book, the Habi book, and this is for indigenous textile, right? And patterns, but yeah, and just doing the research, getting like books like just basic William Henry Scott's Barangay, right? To get some of that, and just look at museums and look at those designs, and many of the communities that create these stuff, you just go to the Ifugaos that are doing all of the carving, they'll tell you anyways what is appropriate to them, right? I remember I went to a really beautiful house, and someone had this parang punamhan, which is a ritual box, and someone put it in their banyo. And I was like, you know what that's for? Diba? And it was just parang, it's just kind of respecting your own culture. And if you respect your own, you just do the due diligence. And I mean, it's not off limits.
Right.
I mean, it's design, once you make something and you give it to someone, you don't know what will happen to it, but it's just kind of just that extra respect that it is our own, and we can, we should be a little bit more respectful, but not keep it in like this purist na parang dapat yan lang, because we evolve, and we
There are two things I can say about that. Thank you.
Yes, Prof. Yes.
Kasi we should respect our people, no? Whether indigenous or not, no? Yung mga death blanket ng Tingyan, hindi niyo pwedeng gamitin sa mga skirt yun. Otherwise, you will be distorting the meaning. Death blanket, gagamitin niyo sa skirt. And then, for yung mga tinalak, sacred yan. Hindi niyo pwedeng gamitin rug or ano yan, ano yun, ano ba tawag sa mga tinatapakan lang, ano? Carpet. You can't just use that for carpets. And secondly, ganito, no? We must not use these traditional designs in a generic way, where you cannot identify kung saan ang galing, no? I often hear of innovating, using traditional patterns and in an innovative way. Innovation doesn't mean losing the particularity of the design. Pag sinabi niyong based on Tiboli, some people should recognize it as Tiboli. In other words, don't lose the ethnicity of the source. You can innovate, you can change, but it should be recognizable as derived from the Tiboli. Innovation shouldn't be so generalized that you don't know anymore the source, no, of the original design. That shows respect for the source. Pag sinabi niyong based on Ilocano design, kailangan whoever sees it will recognize that it is Ilocano. Hindi yung sobrang innovation na wala ng personality, wala ng identity. And that is also respect. Folkloric, but really authentic on the basis of what ethnicity you are trying to represent. What I can say about these things.
Wow, that's so good. Thank you so much for that insight, Prof. Let's now hear it from Architect Richard. Architect Richard.
Hi, yeah, thank you. The two speaker talaga, even though I have been in the industry for 28 years already, it's something new, no, that I was immersed, no, na talagang na-blast talaga ako for the new learnings, no, from Sir June and Clarice, no. And just I want to share lang siguro yung na-mention ni Clarice kanina na ni Charisse, no, na about being careful, no, not necessarily that you just have to follow, may nakita kang pattern on a certain area, you just get it, no. There was an instance, no, there's like a commercial center who was fascinated with this gold paper, no, which we use for burning, no. I'm a Filipino Chinese, I'm a Chinoy, so we use this for burning, no. And one of the festivity during our Chinese New Year, what they did, sinabit nila ginalang banderitas on their shopping center. So a lot of people nagali, I mean, the Chinoy was really ano doon sa social media. So immediately though, they took it out, no. Hindi masyado nag-research siguro yung kanilang ano. So you have to be careful also. Hindi porket may nakita kang ganung pattern, yung follow it, ang ganda kasi kulay ginto, no? Parang very visual. But these things are very, we have to be careful. And as I mentioned nga, sabi nga, the culture is always a way of life that we have, no? So normally, how we transcend, no? Kay Sir Jun, no? I understood. Ngayon, nagulat ko, kaya pala there's the reason, the circle and the rectangle thing, no? Because the circle is normally connected to the Chinese people, Chinese Filipino, no? If you notice in our tables, normally round tables siya, no? And now I understand, di ba? Because of connectivity, you want it connected, no? Unlike yung pag rectangle ka or malayo, no? There's a distance, no? Sabi mo there's probably violence na na-mention ni Sir Jun. So these are my major takeaways, no, from Sir Jun's talk. And yun, tama din, no? The circle actually is very stable yan in terms of columns, no? Doon ko na-realize, oo nga, tama, yung square is sinasabi na natin mga structural, especially yung kunwari, lali column, simple, no? Circle yan. It's the one of the strongest na principle doing a structure, yung that circle. Now, major takeaway ko nga kay Charisse kanina is yung mga patterns, no, yung immersion niya with the other yung mga tribes, yung mga na-visit niya, nakakatuwa, no, because I have that same notion. No? I have a friend, when you do designing, no, like example for houses or residential houses, what they usually do is nag-immerse siya, no. He would request the client, pwede ba ako mag-overnight dito sa house? So he wouldn't understand kasi normally what an architect would ask, ano ba yung wish list ninyo in general, no? And they have the different they have the different wish list. Others would have a big kitchen, others wanted a big music room or something like that. So these are things na dapat ma-immerse and going to a bigger picture, no? Like example sa amin, we're doing a shopping center. Like in one of the malls in Pasig, no, we called it Feliz, no, it's happiness, family oriented. What we did, nag-immerse talaga kami doon sa area. We want to understand in community who will be using this shopping center, no, ano yung times sila pumunta, tumatayo sila, nagsha-shopping sila, and ano yung pathway nila, where is it walkable, they do commute and everything. These are special things that you really have to understand, the culture or yung way of life nung area. So I think those are the major takeaway ko sa kaninang talk ni Charisse and Sergio.
Thank you.
Ayan. Thank you so much, Architect Richard.
Thank you. Yeah. So
Charisse is raising. Yeah. Yes, Charisse.
I actually have a question to Sir June. You have all of these observations of kind of like the Ilocano or the Uslawit, or just all of these things. And how do you, I mean, is it just through experience? Are there certain publications that you think we should be reading? Or how do you come up with all of these kind of comparisons? And I know, do you stay with the community or is it just through work? Or
yes, thank you for the question. The best way to understand it is through art, because art is done unconsciously. In other words, artists, when they do something, they're not fully conscious, they're not fully aware. Especially, this comes from intuition. That's why the art does not tell a lie. when you use the written word or the spoken word, you can tell a lie. Diba? Yung sa semiotics, when you use words like that of a lawyer, mga politicians, they use words. And this comes from the conscious level. You can tell a lie, but you can never tell a lie through art. That's impossible. Yes, impossible. And because when you really are an artist, siguro mga 3/4 of what you're doing is in the unconscious level, especially if you are inspired. When you're unconscious, you reveal who you really are. There's look, there's a difference between what we call discursive. Yun yung conversational, you write words, no? Discursive. So discourse, conversation, and experiential symbolism. There are two kinds of symbolism, discursive and experiential. The symbols of art are all experiential. It's not discursive. Ganito, no? Language has two aspects. Language is both discursive and experiential. What you are saying, no? Whether it's written or spoken, what you're saying is discursive. You're conscious of it. Pero the way you are saying it is always experiential. At hindi niyo maitatago kung sino kayo when you look at the way you are saying it. Alam mo, nakakatawa, no? If I say this, I'm not nervous. I'm not nervous. Yung content, that's discursive. Pero the way you say it is experiential. You cannot deny what you are feeling. Hindi niya maitatago yung feeling niya. Maski magaling kayong actor, pag ginamitan na kayo ng lie detector, makikita yung jitters kasi ninenervous pa nito yun. You cannot tell art. You cannot tell right. So the best way to find this out is through art. The most expressive. Yes.
I have a follow-up question po, Professor June, Ka-June.
Yeah.
So can that mindset be also applied in the way we see design? Can design lie? Or
Yes.
does it reveal what is the interiority of a designer?
Design cannot lie. As long as you are not just copying, even if you copy, that's still an expression of who you are. Whatever design comes out of you, that's you. Any kind of art is a self-confession. It's a self-confession.
Yeah. And with that note, Eric,
you project yourself in whatever you do.
Yeah. And with that interesting conversation, I want to invite Ivy. Kanina pa siya nodding, kanina pa siya napapangiti. I want to understand what's happening. IDRR Ivy.
IDR Ivy.
Okay. Hi, good afternoon. Oh my God, marami pong salamat, Ka-June and Charisse. I am so floored. I learned so much. I mean, the world, I will no longer look at or read the word culture. And my former knowledge was so limited. Now, from what I understood and from what I heard, namulat ang aking mata. Marami pong salamat. And I want to address this to the 200 students who are listening, right? Imagine, in 20 minutes, we were taken from the Renaissance to the Baroque. Even, many inferences to our current political situation. I mean, everything that was relevant, even the dynamics between man and women. When did the Venus culture end and when did male dominancy come in? I mean, you can go as far back as that. And then, when he was discussing this, I thought to myself, the visual image came out. Look at the American Indians and the teepee. Yes, of course, circular ang mga tribes. Look at everything. I mean, the original, the tribal form is really circular. So it was really very engaging. So before I digress, gusto ko sana isabihin sa lahat na desire informs designs because it's your intentionality should come sana from deeper knowledge. And I'm only saying this kasi I am so humbled. Ang dami kong kulang na alam. So parang laliman natin ang ating pagkakilala sa ating sarili. Binukas yung mata ko ni Ka-June doon. Kasi ang dali ngayon maging tamad. I mean, pwede ka na lang magsubsob sa K-drama. Pwede ka, bago dyan, nagsubsob tayo for more than 50 years sa Hollywood. The Hollywood culture naman. Kaya ang tayo, nauwala na yung kultura natin sa sarili natin. Kaya we're such a cut and paste. We're such a cut and paste I don't know what the next word will be to the adjective cut and paste. Should I say people? I don't want to be derogatory. Pero now that you understand,
Cut and paste
cut
addict.
and yes, cut and paste addicts. That's the word. Ngayong napakinggan na natin si Charisse, who made it her advocacy to immerse herself in the different indigenous peoples, their culture, her respect for them. Let's honor how they dedicated their lives by making sure that after this session, let's go deeper and understand our roots para para mas malalim ang hugot natin sa pag-design. Kasi, you know, the competition is about empathy. And you cannot have empathy if you do not start from loving who you are. And we've never loved who we are sincerely as a Filipino people. Kasi we were always aping other cultures. It was, you know, I don't want to give an apology. I don't want to say because it was imposed by 400 years of Spanish colonization, another 50 years of American. Okay, we're a wounded culture. That's why we're a mess. We don't need to go where we are. Let's just go where we could be. Let's just go to that direction.
Yeah.
And I'm so indebted to Kajun and Charisse for inspiring. Hi, grabe, I'm so inspired. Maraming
Yeah.
salamat.
Wonderful. Galing.
Ganda. I'd like to take that, Michael, now into the next part of the conversation, which is ang ganda ng segue, where we could be. Diba? And so I guess the question now is for Kajun and Charisse. As talking about as culture as a mindset, and it's constantly evolving, right? It's constantly evolving. That's the nature of mindsets and belief systems. Where do you see the Filipino culture going? And what is your hope for the Filipino mindset and Filipino culture as reflected in designs? Prof at Kajun?
Yes. Cultural progress happens very slowly, but it is happening. If you made an indigenous group perform their music, their songs, dances, or display their textiles in any venue in the Philippines in the 60s, makapagtawanan pa sila. But since that time, we have gained, we developed some kind of respect because exposure began in the 60s, and slowly we developed the idea of indigenous psychology. Meron ng sinatawag na yung kilusan towards understanding who we are, and parami yan. And now look at the respect that we have now for indigenous peoples, especially with the founding of Manila Collectibles. Walang ganyan nung araw. That was impossible before. Ang laki na ng progress natin. So we look forward to more recognition of who we are, to be proud of our gifts as a people. Marami yan. Ang dami-dami yung gifts na yan.
Who we are. Ang ganda. So I'd like to ask Charisse on that one. Kasi who we are, di ba? And she said it all begins with our story. We deserve our stories and the world deserves our story. So, Charisse, what is the Filipino story for you? What is the Filipino story based from what you've seen in all these communities?
Okay, that's pretty. I think, because we are so diverse, and we shouldn't try to kind of just standardize everything, because we're not. I mean, there's no one. You have 110 ethno-linguistic groups with each with its own parang epic, so you can't really try to standardize. And I feel like now there's this like crazy synergy between kind of the creative industries and the national, like the governmental agencies and nonprofits, and kind of everyone, I feel, I don't know, is kind of working towards this goal to even like Congressman Toff de Venecia. I mean, he's working on the creative industries bill. And that's just gonna have, just kind of put everyone kind of in the same, I guess collaborate more or whatnot. And like what Prof June was saying before parang indigenous wasn't, people would laugh or whatnot. But now you see that our designs, you go to BGC, you'll see it. Like I was at BGC yesterday, and I saw a pop-up like Rogue Donuts. So I went inside, and their donuts were like, okay, they even had ube baterol. They had chocolate with a donut with like Malagos chocolate and dilis on top. And like you see this in the food. You see this, how like we're into it's not, people are kind of like shedding that colonial. I mean, even I don't know what it is. Kind of, they're just really more empowered to share kind of what they have and see the importance of whatever, I guess, is like within their culture or their experience. Did I answer your question? What was your question?
Yeah, definitely. Like, because there's so many stories. There's so many Filipino stories, and we
so
can't
many
just
stories.
put it in one.
Yeah, and parang everyone is synergizing. Like we're having this conversation, right? This conversation alone, all right, just goes to show how where we're headed towards. When before it was like, oh, okay, we want this imported tile from Germany, or we want this imported blah 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 from the United States. But now it's like, okay, I'm looking for an artisan that can make this, and I want the Philippine natural dye. I want kind of the Philippine craftsmanship. It wasn't like that before, but yeah, I see.
Sige, Charisse, thank you. You're correct. Yeah, you have conveyed to us the Filipino journey, no, the Filipino story. I just like to add that, well, we don't have much time, given much time, I can tell you the Filipino story in a more comprehensive way. But, our story started around 8,000 years ago. Doon pa lang na-establish na kung sino tayo eh. Especially when we left Taiwan, galing tayo sa Taiwan eh. All our languages, Taiwan is not Chinese. Naging Chinese lang doon. Yung mga tumatakas yung ayaw ng komunista noong 1948, noong 1949 pala, ayaw nila ng communism, they escaped from the mainland, nagpunta sa Taiwan. But Taiwan is really Southeast Asian. Doon tayo galing. Lahat ng languages natin galing sa Taiwan. This is the Austronesian family of languages. Before colonialism, the most widespread language all over the world was our Austronesian set of languages. Nadala natin yan. Filipinos, brought that to Hawaii, brought that to Easter Island, New Zealand, even Madagascar in Africa. Doon pa lang, yung Austronesian heritage yan, shape our thinking. And maybe later in another session, I can tell you kung ano yung culture na nanggaling sa Austronesian na yan. One, we are the richest in the whole of Australasia in the number of affixes. Pinakamarami tayong conjugations. No? What does that mean? That means we are the most highly relational among the Austronesian peoples. Now, there are certain key ideas. There are certain key ideas that influence whatever we get from the outside. Yung key ideas, I can tell you about these key ideas later, pero yung key ideas na yan ang ginagamit natin na pang-shape ng whatever comes from the outside. Kaya parang ang culture natin ganito, parang sinigang. Yung sinigang, merong template, di ba? Template of asim, nasabaw, gulay, at saka mga napakarne. But you have so many different kinds of sinigang. Depende sa tao yan. All over the country, there's so much creative variety, but there's something constant, yung template, which is our essential culture. Yun ang ginagamit natin to really Philippinize everything. But still, there's so much variety because we have so many people here. Bawat mga tao, every ethnicity uses this Austronesian heritage to shape whatever influences come from the outside in their own way, using this template. Yun lang masasagot ko, but it needs more time.
Eric?
Eric? Yes, Michael. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof.
Yeah, welcome.
Pinipigilan ko yung sarili ko mag-react dahil pag ako nagsalita, alam mo naman ang kasunod doon. But there's a very interesting question from our students. If I may just that, and I don't want to waste on this opportunity for learning for them. Okay, the question comes from Paul from PUP, and he says, "Hi, I'm an architect student from Rizal. I have a question in terms of empathy. Can we fail to design for someone else's need? We can fail by misinterpreting them in our designs. How can we make designs genuinely them?" Okay. Maganda yung question about empathy. Maybe let's post this in our conversations, Eric. But there is another question here, no? Another question from PUP naman by Alisa. Having limited resources, meaning textbooks in schools, plus the miseducation, medyo sensitive ito, we experience because of colonization and not being represented as Filipinos in media and internet, in what way can we teach and introduce or contribute to establishing our identity as Filipinos to younger generations effectively in a world of information that is open to more foreign culture? So ang tanong, how can we?
Prof. John.
Hindi totoo yan. Kasi we have always been open to foreign culture. We've always been open to foreign culture. We are not more open to foreign culture. Now, we have always been open to foreign culture, but pinaproseso natin. We Filipinize anything that comes from the outside. Sabi ni Dr. Florentino Ornedo, a cultural historian, the stranger of today will be the native of tomorrow. It's just a matter of time. We Filipinize it. Binabago natin yan to suit our needs. Look, even in the use of the media, we are #1 in the internet in the whole world. 10.4 hours in a single day. Pinakamahaba ang gamit natin ng internet. Doon pa lang Filipino na yun eh. That is what? A highly relational culture. Hindi nawawala yan.
Kajun, ang sinabi po niya that we are more open to foreign.
Hindi. We have always been open to foreign cultures, pero binabago natin yan.
Filipinize.
Sabi po niya, we are more open.
Yeah, okay.
That po.
We have always been open to foreign cultures because we are #1. #1 tayo sa pag-travel.
Kajun,
We are
question. What's
one-third of our seamen, one-third ng mandaragat sa buong mundo ay Pilipino. We have always been open to foreign cultures.
Okay.
IDRID has a question po. IDRID?
Kajun, hindi ho ba naman medyo hindi ho ba naman nakasama yun sa atin? Kasi hindi naging puro yung kultura. Hindi lumali.
No, ang ibig sabihin ng puro, pinasok natin yung sariling kaisipan natin. Like, mag-basketball tayo. Puro na yun eh. Kasi pinasok natin yung basketball within our own syntax and grammar. Hindi na American yun. In other words, kinolonize natin yung language. That's purely Filipino. Hindi mo makikita yung ganong klaseng formation in other cultures. That's purely Filipino. Mag-basketball tayo. Filipino yun. That's not foreign. Mag-taxi tayo. Purely Filipino yan. Kasi wala ibang makakagawa na kundi tayo. There's no such thing as impure culture. Lahat yan, pure lang.
Charisse, you want to say something?
Well, I mean, if you want to learn more about, I guess, our culture and kind of our inner beings, you should just literally try to go to all of the talks of Prof. June because
Yes.
I mean that's how honestly it's just it's inspiring and just going to museums and kind of just researching what you have, going to look at your old albums of your lolas, look at old recipes and kind of just go from there. I mean, because it's all around you, we're living it, right? So yeah, that's what I have to say.
We have a notion na the more you go back to our indigenous culture, na talagang nagiging pure. No, that is not true. Kasi if you really go back to the 16th century, 1600, hindi pa Pilipino yun. Southeast Asian pa yun eh. Wala namang Pilipino yun eh. No, the more you go to original, the more you go to Southeast Asian culture, and it's not Filipino. Buti nga dumating ang Kastila, dumating ang Amerikano, lalo tayo naging Pilipino. Why? We became more distinct from other Southeast Asians. We became different. And at the same time, yung template ng kultura natin from the Katutubo, yun ang ginagamit natin to Filipinize everything that comes to us from the foreign. Hindi na wala yung template ng Katutubo, nandyan pa rin yun. And we always have used that to change whatever comes from the outside. And we became more Filipino because we showed to the world kung paano natin pinaproseso yung lahat na nanggagaling sa labas using our original Southeast Asian culture. But when you say from more Filipino yung mga Katutubo ng 16th century, not necessarily. Because that's close to Vietnam, close to...
But it's saying that
Southeast Asian yun, not really Filipino. Wala po ng Filipino nun eh.
Interesting, very interesting.
Okay.
Eric, alam mo, ngayon lang ako naka-experience na ang pinag-uusapan ay history and culture, pero lahat all ears. Ang alam ko, nung estudyante ako, this is an opportunity to cut class or to doze off in the classroom. You know, iba yung passion, iba yung enthusiasm, iba yung energy when we talk about this now that we are not that young anymore. Now, ang interested ako dito, Eric. Siguro let's just sum it up as we are already we are extending. You know, our conversations right now is really a testament on how the younger generation can see culture in a very dynamic, very evolving way, no?
Yes.
Siguro, Eric, let this be an invitation, or maybe how can we better this and how can we promote this, or what can we do about this? let's start with. I want to start with Charisse. I'm so starstruck with Charisse. Sorry.
And by the way, I love the Manila collectibles. I super love
Oh
it.
yeah.
She's a star. She's really a star. Siya ng number 1 sa graduates ng mga mabuhay guides. Number 1 yan.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir. Wait, what was the question again? Can you repeat?
So what can we do? No, what can we do to make the fire alive and continue the? Kasi ito yung napipick up in our conversation. If we think that culture is stagnating, no, it's not. Based on our conversation, it's something that is alive. No, how ang point ng questioning or maybe our closing thoughts here is what do you think is the what is the best patituloy ako nawala na. So ano sa tingin mo, Charisse, no, and Kajun also, as well as the judges, how can the torch of culture be passed on if we can do this continuously, evolving and living, no? What can be the best way to do this? As we pass it on tayo, we're passing out to the students right now. Paano para magamit din nila ito sa lahat ng gawain nila in terms of design and the way they live their life right now?
Ako, sagot ko nila, isa lang ang sagot ko. Ituro niyo yung wika. That's all. Yun na muna. Marami pang iba para, but the most important is, huwag niyong kalimutan ng Ilocano, Cebuano, Tiboli, Blaan. The moment you teach the language, hindi mamamatay ang culture. Ang problema, maraming Pilipino na ayaw ng pagkalitain ng Tagalog yung mga anak nila. Nakakahiya sila.
At dahil po dyan, gusto ko pong madinig ang pwedeng ibahagi at ipahiwatig ng ating isa pang tagapagsalita, si Binibining Charisse.
Okay. I think for me, I think it's also important language. I mean, it's problematic, right? Because my Tagalog is horrible, and it's, you know, and this is something that I want to inculcate to my children. But I think also we always have to kind of find and I think we always down ourselves. It's like, okay, yan na naman, kulelat na naman tayo, or we're so this, it's always, we kind of look at ourselves in a way where we're kind of always last, or always bad, or always corrupt. But you know, there's greatness within all of us, and in our everyday things, you know, just looking at that inspiration, whether you go to your backyard and look at a plant and look at whatever you have. I mean, it's just so beautiful, and I think it's just finding that you don't have to go far, because you don't have to go into an indigenous community or whatnot to find. I know it's everywhere. It's in our being. So yes, trying to just find that inspiration.
That's correct. Anywhere you go, you find the identity.
And if I may add, since we're talking about language, so I'd like to put this idea forward for future explorations, that design is basically language, that we're trying to communicate something through design. And in semiotics, if mindset is embedded in a particular language, the question there is, what do you think is the most beautiful mindset that we have as a Filipino that we wish to be expressed in architecture, in interiors, in the way we design? I think that would be my last question for our speakers.
Exactly my thought, Eric.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you for capturing that. Yeah.
I have one whole semester of talk on that, pero it's really love, pag-ibig.
Ganda.
Yeah, love. Ganito kasi we are very highly relational. Kung titignan yung bahay na bato, note the concept of space in bahay na bato. Ang gusto ng Pilipino, wherever you are inside the house, whether you are outside or inside, every other part of the house should be visible from any vantage point. Any part of the house should be intelligible or visible from any vantage point. In other words, ayaw nating mahiwalay sa kapwa. We are the most romantic, the most loving of people all over the world. Marami ng research dyan. Number 1 tayo sa feeling love. And you can see that our architecture is open na open yan. Kitang-kita niyo yung kapitbahay, no? Bukas na bukas yung mga bintana, ang lalawak na mga spaces, maaliwalas. So you can see everybody. Yan ang architecture natin, very highly relational. Pati piyesta natin, maski hindi nyo kamag-anak, pinapakain kayo. We are a very sharing culture. That's one. If you can express this sharing highly relational culture in our architecture, Filipino yan. Hindi mo mawala ang pagka-Pilipino natin.
Galing.
Hindi niyo po alam kung gaano ko kinikilig at sobrang natutuwa hearing you say that we Filipinos, it's really all about love. And with that, I'd like to hear, of course, final words from our judges, especially. So let's start with Architect Richard, since we're talking about Bahay na Bato and architecture. Architect.
Yeah, actually yung sinasabi ni Sir Jun kanina, natutuwa nga ako. Sabi ko parang nahayaan ko na lang magsalita kasi a lot of things talaga na something is more of psychology talaga, no? But for me, very important, no, for our aspirants for this Ayda na competition, design competition, is the identity. You have to create the identity of your project para mag-stand out yung project na gagawin mo, no? How do you create that identity? No, yung kanina sinasabi nga ni Charisse, sinasabi nga ni Sir Jun about Filipino identity. Filipino identity way back talaga sinasabi nun, baduy, ganyan. Talagang napakahirap pag nag-design ka. Clients would say, yeah, parang they don't, and selective architects lang talaga kumukuha niyan. But right now, there's already an acceptance, no? Because international style na siya. So sabi nga, especially right now, there are a lot of because of social media, it's easy really to capture sa social media anong type of structure na gusto ng kliyente. Sometimes the client would give you, ito gusto ko architect na itsura. Binibigyan na sa'yo, but we're not draftsman, we're creative people. We have to do something na kailangan bagay sa'yo. We have to customize something. That's what they don't really understand sometimes. Na drawing lang yan, kaya this is your fee or this is your design fee. No? But it's not that. We have to create something that customized to you, no? Customized personally for you and for your family. You have to enjoy that place. You have to enjoy that facility. So in general, sa akin, identity is very important. And everything, no, you have to reinvent. No? Kailangan from the previous, so you don't forget about the past. No? From the past, sabi ko, these patterns, that the forms, the shape, the colors are all part of the culture. Regardless of ano yan, talagang from that, no, but don't copy it just directly, no? Nakita mo itong pattern, copy mo kagad ganon. You have to diverse it, you have to reinvent, no? And especially right now, very visual yung mga tao. Yung sinasabi nga ni Sir Jun na experiential, no? Hinahanap na talaga yung pagiging experiential. Everything, every time you pass something or yung nakikita mo isang space should be experiential for the occupant, no? Hindi lang yan parang ginawa yan because of that space, but because we want to, everything should change, no? And their life would change because of the design that you have put into their, you look forward for a better design, you look for a happy place, you look for an improved space for you. That's the reason nga, nagpapakreate ka ng kunwari houses or whatever facilities that you have. So for me, yun nga, in terms of materials, you have to siguro more be creative. Nabanggit nga ni Charisse before na anything Filipino nun, ayaw rin nila na material. But right now, pwede mo pa customize na yan sa mga local craftsmen, no? Or mga local materials available right now. And these are very good in terms of mga green, no? Sustainable thing na nagagamit mo siya as a criteria to have that premium on your projects, on the drawings that you're doing, no? You could use that as a criteria na na-up mo yung brand ng ginagawa mo. So I think overall parang ganun lang eh. I think right now Filipinos or the designers, right, or the architects or the interior designer are much more open na rin, no? And let's have something like an inspiration is very important. Though these are design inspiration, but do not directly copy it. From that, you create something out of it. Yun lang siguro. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Architect. And let's now hear it from IDR Cynthia. IDR Cynthia?
Hi, if Architect Richard says identity, siguro naman for me, authenticity. You have to find out who you are. Kasi you have to discover yourself. It's only when you find out who you are that you can really share something from you. Kasi syempre importante na kailangan mo makilala sarili mo. What resonates with you? Kasi kung hindi, like Ivy said earlier, wala kang pagkukunan. So I know all of you are still young, and of course this is just the first step, but parang siguro just the idea of making authenticity as part of your growth process para at least what you're designing resonates with you, it excites you, and you become passionate about it kasi talagang interest mo eh. Hindi ka nagfi-fake eh. Kasi type mong gantong design, Gusto ko talaga kasi ang ganda eh, ang dami kong matututunan. Tsaka pag yan ang ginawa ko, mas may explain ko sa lahat kasi talagang it really tugs at my heartstrings kasi I'm passionate about it. So I think at this young age, try to find your authentic self and really establish your point of view, your DNA. So for now, that's what I can live. Those words.
So thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you so much.
To IDR, Cynthia. Maybe Eric, let's call on the next.
Yes, IDR Ivy.
Okay. Yeah, to segue with what Cynthia said, there was a question earlier. Somebody said, even if I have empathy, how my fear is, did I understand the client? I mean, did I disappoint them? I mean, of course, to all of us, I mean, 10 years from now, all of you students are already our peers. You're already part of our creative community. So I would like to address this because we've been practicing interior design for many years. And if you, like Cynthia said, if you listen with your heart, yung pala naman nasa DNA natin na sa people, talaga naman palang mapagmahal. Love is really how we approach everything. If you truly listen from the heart, you will never go wrong because your knee-jerk reaction will be always for what will make your clients' lives better. Please remember that the ego has no position in authentic design. It's not about how good you are. That's not the output that you want. The output that you want for sustainable design, for a sustainable career, is the marriage of your skill set. Yung bang inaral mo, kasi mahal mo itong ginagawa mo. At yung pagdrinig mo, at yung pagtingin mo sa iyong kliyente, kasi you really want to give them better lives. They went to you for something. And you have, especially now, where you cannot waste our natural materials, you have to build and build well. So, yun lang masasabi ko sa inyo. Don't be afraid. Because according to June, art never lies. And good art.
Eric, can you indulge me in a few moments with IDR Ivy and IDR Cynthia? Can we have IDR Cynthia back?
Yes, hi.
So, ayan, maybe at this point you want to invite them to the next journey that both of you are taking.
Yes, tonight at 8:00 p.m. everyone, we're inviting you to our very first YouTube channel. So please join us at 8:00 p.m. And how do I share the link?
It's the Atelier Almar
find it.
YouTube channel.
Wow.
But wait, I'll just put it in the chat group as well. Thank you.
Yes, yeah.
Yes,
So
we're so excited.
we are so excited to have you in AYDA design community, and at the same time you continuously inspire.
Yeah, ang ganda.
Yeah, Eric.
And so let's hear it now from our speakers. Our final words po from
Final word. Sige.
Yes.
I just would like to say na it might be contrary to what we have been hearing since since we started. But actually, you don't even have to look at our indigenous designs, no? You don't even have to be aware na kailangan maging Filipino, magkaroon ng authenticity, ethnicity. Just practice your craft to the best of your ability, no? Be as good an architect or designer as you could be, no? Sa umpisa, siyempre, you'll be influenced by what you learn in school, mga giging foreigners. Pero just go on and on and on. Later, purely Filipino na yung lalabas sa inyo. Why? Because you're a Filipino. Ganito ang creativity kasi. Think of creativity as some kind of a canal. Kanal yan na marumi, maraming papel, mga dumi-dumi yung kanal kasi walang tubig na dumadaan. The moment you start creating, unti-unti nagkakaroon ng tubig yan. Until later, naanod na yung mga dumi, yung mga debris ng kanal hanggang later, pure water na yung lalabas. That's already you. Lalabas yung identity nyo the more you devote yourself to your work. Ganyan talaga ang art. Sa umpisa, because you don't know how to do it, hihiram muna kayo sa labas, kukuha muna kayong design, even from the ethnic, okay lang yun. Pero later, you don't have to be influenced by all of this kasi pag lumabas yung talagang kayo, yung real you, that Filipino and can every any other than Filipino kasi original, walang kamuka. Kasi every person meron sariling genius. Yung lalabas sa inyo because Filipino kayo, talagang Filipino yun. Whatever you say, hindi yan magiging foreign kasi kayo yun eh. That's the way to make it Filipino.
Wonderful.
Okay, mag-alala na hindi ako nagbabasa ng indigenous material pero don't worry, the more you devote yourself to your work, the more you will be Filipino.
Wow. Thank you so much, Prof. And let's hear it from Charisse.
Charisse, yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you for sharing space. And I totally agree with Prof. June. Just hone your craft, work on it, and try to do the best that you can. And again, thank you very much for sharing space. Please follow our social media, NBDB, Manila Collectible and Culture Aid.
I just like to say that I'm very happy that you're in NBDB, the executive director. I used to be a member of the board of that.
Oh, yes, sir. It's
yes.
fun.
Thank you for being there. Ang laki na magagawa mo yan. Ang laki na magagawa mo sa NBDB. Dati kasi static yung, sorry dati kasi hindi gumagalaw yung napagalaw mo, imagine napagalaw mo, it's also that time.
Thank you, Chip.
Wonderful. Eric?
And yes, we'll just continue the work. Thank you so much for sharing yourselves, not just what you do, but who you are with us, your beliefs, and more importantly, what connects all of us, right? And I guess it's really the level of the heart, the puso, ang puso ng isang Pilipino, at kaya ng iwagayway yan sa buong mundo, ipakita sa buong mundo. And we're excited for our participants. So please join us because AYDA is a platform for our young designers, both for architecture and interior design, to show to the world what's inside the Filipino heart, right? And the Filipino artistry. And so we hope that you learned a lot from today's insight. We thank all of you. We thank our panelists, of course, our judges, and our speakers for this wonderful opportunity. We know we extended a little bit of time, but a lot of people stayed with us. So thank you so much. And Michael, anything else?
No, ang dami kong nasulat, ang dami kong natutunan. And I just want to recap and maybe some points of discussion that may be of help to our students. I realized hindi lang pala buhay ang may hugot, pati pala culture may hugot. Kaya pala merong difference between circle. May laban pa rin ang babae sa lalaki, which is very relevant and significant, especially come May. You know what I mean? And I love that even the narrative of design and the way we see and the way we speak and the way we think is reflective of who we are deep inside. Centuries down the line. I love it that when Charisse mentioned na it's the diversity that creates unity, implied in that way. Ngayon, I will not only look at the 1,700 islands. I will look at the 17 million indigenous tribes that we have. Look at the wealth. No, instead of looking small numbers, let's look at the big numbers. Instead of looking at the small details, let's look at the bigger picture. And being a Filipino is not about a detail. That being a Filipino is about the heart. A heart that binds, a heart that beats, a heart that tells a story, a heart that tells about respect, leading to identity and authenticity, a heart that relates and translates the story of Filipino from where we started to how we and our students will co-create the future. You know, Eric, I'm you can tell by the energy.
yes.
Ako feeling ko ganito. Kung merong anak si Kajon, ako yon. I can go on and on and on and on. So that's how passionate we are. And here in AYDA, the community is thriving. The community is living. You can see and feel that. You know, look at our speakers. Look at our judges. Look at the love they're putting it here. Eric?
Yes, and there's so much more to talk about. So we would like to invite you to, of course, like and subscribe to all our social media channels for Asia Young Designer Awards. Let's continue the conversation there at pwedeng nyo mapanood ito paulit-ulit as we upload this in our YouTube channels and of course, and And please join also Ivy and Cynthia in their YouTube channel
Yeah.
tonight at
So
8 p.m. That's really exciting.
Excited, yeah.
Yeah, they placed the link in our chat box. Of course, that's at Atelier Al Mario PH. You can just look for that on YouTube. So congratulations in advance to
Congratulations, and,
IDR
you know,
Ivy and IDR
yeah.
Cynthia.
I have,
And
Thank
of course,
you.
thank you to
I have not seen a more
Yes.
passionate. I have not seen a more passionate group of architects.
and interior designers, di ba, Papa?
Yeah. Alam mo,
Designers,
what I
designers.
admire about here is that we are echoing the Filipino soul, no? And yeah, and
Yeah.
tomorrow meron pa rin ho tayong
Meron pa tayo bukas. Tomorrow is our
Marami
last
pang
for this year.
pag-usapan. Marami pang
Nature naman
pag-usapan.
tomorrow.
Oo.
Nature, so excited na ako sa susutin mo bukas, Michael Pizarro. But again, thank you so much to
For inviting
Professor Felipe Dunn, Prof. June De Leon, and of course, Ms. Charisse Tugade, and to our panelists, IDR Ivy, IDR Cynthia, and Architect Richard. And at this point, we'd like to turn you over to Mike Kililan, our contest manager. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let me just do this. Okay. Ayan. So actually, nasabi niyo na po lahat. So I'd just like to thank everyone who attended. And yun nga, as what Eric and Sir Mike said, we still have one last session for tomorrow. So hope you could all join us. I'm sure it will be as fun-packed and as information-filled as what you've had today. So invite your friends, invite your schoolmates, and see you all tomorrow. Maraming salamat. Bye! Stay safe.